to the Make It Count podcast. My name's David.
My name's Matt.
And we are the Taylor Bros.
I can never think of what to say after that.
Making it count, moment by moment, day by
week
day.
by week. Yeah, we really
pros.
need to hire someone to tell us what to say next.
Just think about it.
Just think
Takes
about
2
it.
minutes, yeah. Why don't you make that moment count?
So this
It's a moment you're
episode,
missing every week.
Summer's last week, we're coming at you with a quote.
Coming at you.
Yeah, I don't know why. Oh yeah, because I always want to say coming at you live. It's like we're not. Yeah, it's bad. Okay.
You got another quote?
It's streaming to you. I don't know what we're doing, but in the future you'll be hearing this or watching
Having a
this.
dialogue.
Another quote, and this was some advice given to Warren Buffett. Warren, you can always tell someone to go to hell tomorrow. It's such an easy way of putting it. You haven't missed the opportunity. You just forgot about it for a day. If you feel the same way tomorrow, tell them then, but don't spout off in a moment of anger. So this episode is kind of about anger, holding our temper, holding our tongue maybe.
Yeah, so why did you want to talk about that? Why that quote? Why now?
Why this? Well, I'm just a perennially angry person, and
As everyone on the
always telling
podcast
people,
can tell,
always
it's
telling
come
people
across
to go to hell. And it's a big weakness of mine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily true, but I think we've all experienced moments where we've said something in anger and then we regret it later, and we have to backtrack. Well, probably the thing I most speak angry to is my computer and the software. But I have found actually, if I try to hold my tongue, it does generally make me feel a bit more regulated, and things seem to go smoother quicker rather than just ranting and raving at the computer.
So yeah, I don't know the context of this conversation, but I think, like you said, this quote speaks to that idea of anger and being able to maybe be patient in that moment, not act out straight away on that anger.
Yeah. There was a quote I had on my wall for years growing up. It was, I think it was like a Chinese proverb or something. It was the one who smiles is stronger than the one who angers, or something like that, or is easily angered. And I think again, it's that idea of, it's not necessarily that you're not allowed to feel aggrieved or angered by something, but the response you hold. And in many cultures through thousands of years, the ability to control our anger in the moment and then choose a more measured response is a good thing.
It's a sign of maturity.
It is a sign of maturity. Perhaps we're losing that a little bit when we're digitally connected but actually physically separated, because we can't see the response, we can't engage with the person, we're just seeing text or maybe videos.
Yeah, and undoubtedly, anger is probably one of the hardest emotions to manage and regulate.
Yep.
It can come very quick and very forcefully and very angrily, and sometimes unpredictably.
Yeah.
And so if we learn to manage our anger, or those moments of outrage even,
yes,
then that does really show a maturity. There are other emotions. We probably need to manage emotions. A sign of emotional intelligence, a part of that, or a quadrant of the 4 parts of emotional intelligence, one of them is managing your own emotions. So, some people don't even believe we should be managing our emotions. I should be able to spontaneously express all my emotions. That's my most authentic self. Whether we believe authenticity is about spontaneity and spontaneous emotions, maybe I'll push back on that a little bit, but I think a sign of emotional intelligence is managing your emotions, and anger is definitely one of those that I think is valuable too.
Absolutely.
But hardest to.
Yeah. I've heard that anger is, I'm not sure this is the correct term, like a second order emotion. It's not a primary one. It covers over another emotion, often fear, and it's almost a protecting. So anger arises when something has been crossed, or a boundary has been crossed, or something has been violated.
Yeah, that's the word I've heard. When we feel violated, I think frustration often we won't usually say, "Oh, I'm really angry." We'll say, "I'm frustrated," and that's a lower level of anger. That's a I've not been able to express this, and I think we'll often see that in the workplace, because what's the frustration directed at? It's directed at people higher up the chain of command that we don't feel like we can maybe be as honest with without consequences. And so I think there are lots of work situations where there's a frustration because it's not maybe a help well, it's not maybe a violation, but it's a helplessness.
Yeah.
This thing is affecting me. It's affecting me negatively, and I don't feel like I can do anything about it.
For sure. And if you think about like the word frustration actually is perfect. So you're like, oh, I'm attempting to achieve something, but my efforts have been frustrated. And it's effectively, it's the emotional response to I'm unable to achieve what I want to achieve because of some reason.
Yes.
And often we then get angry at an external thing. But I've faced just as much internal frustration thinking about last week's episode about time management and energy management. How many times have I then kind of looked back on a day or a week and been frustrated at myself for not showing up in a way that actually, so I've frustrated my own attempts to achieve what I want to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe to bring it back to the quote we're talking about here,
Yes.
anger. You can always tell someone to go to hell tomorrow.
Yeah.
You haven't missed that opportunity. Now, in that moment, we might want to say it in that moment, but we know there are consequences, and maybe many times we don't say it in that moment because of those consequences. And he basically says, forget about it for a day. Don't even don't come back to it tomorrow. Leave it a whole day at least. You haven't missed that opportunity, but maybe the day after, you can find a more healthy way of acting on it. Now, I think probably what lots of people in some cultures do is they then just, oh, I don't want to bring that up again.
Sure.
That happened 2 days ago.
Yes.
Now you suppressed it. Now it's inside. It's actually built that internal frustration.
Yes.
So I do think you have to find a way of dealing with it, of approaching it, and that requires maturity. It requires a trust in that relationship, probably, to be able to say, hey, by the way, this happened. This is frustrating me. How can you help me solve this?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And there, of course, is the, I don't even know if it's a proverb or if it's a statement, but that biblical thing of don't let the sun go down on your anger. There is that element of, if you let that sit in and dwell in, then I think it starts to do something to your heart, to the way rather than actually, maybe I do need to express this to someone, but not in a way that's slanderous or not in a way but in order to not let this do something to me. So that it's out. Maybe it's just the journal. The journal can be the place where you go, this is what I really would like to say.
And I think this is one of the things that's important as well. Anger is something that's worth examining. I was reading a book about marriage, and it was talking about second marriages, and like some people who have been divorced and then they get married again, and the spouse in that second marriage can end up being in an argument, and they have to realize that the person they're with is not arguing with them, they're arguing with the previous spouse.
Wow.
And we sometimes have that
yes.
Actually I think I'm frustrated at Matt, but actually I'm
Probably
frustrated at a different situation. I'm angry at something else.
Yeah.
And Matt's touched on that. And
yes.
so it's so much easier to blame Matt. Matt made me angry. He did this thing, but actually that emotional response was not appropriate for that situation.
Yeah.
It was above and beyond, and so it's maybe trodden or something. And so it's worth examining. What is it here? Have I been violated? Is it something that sometimes there are righteous things that make us angry? There's an injustice here, and is it true? Have I let that? I think a lot of social media can wrap itself up in self-righteousness and say, this is a wrong thing, blah, blah, blah. So, well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, maybe you've looked at it in a bit of a binary way.
For sure.
But to examine it, why was that something that made me angry? And so that's why in that moment, maybe pausing and not responding straight away, going away and going, what's going on here, can be really valuable.
Absolutely. And I think this is where, going back to, where does a lot of the rage culture, if we want to call it that, express itself, or is it played out? It's in the digital realm. And so perhaps we can start making use of those draft boxes, or those, don't send it immediately. Have a thing that you just let it sit for a day or something. I've even toyed with the idea, I'm not on social media much anymore, but I toyed with the idea of maybe just having a notes application like an Evernote or something, and actually that's where I draft my initial response, so that there's no risk of me hitting send and enter immediately. This is what I want to say, and let it sit, and then come back, okay, I'm happy with that, I'll copy and paste it in or whatever. That could be a tool that helps us to digitally, these are my initial thoughts, this is what I really, this is how I just need to get it out, but I'm not going to just send that out unedited.
So you haven't missed the opportunity. If you still want to say that and you think it's the best thing, or actually you're in a bad situation,
There is always
that is the best thing to do. That's going to end that situation,
Exactly,
and that needs ending.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Some bridges do need burning.
Don't do it in a rush.
Exactly. Yeah, you can always burn that bridge tomorrow. Alternatively, the other side of it as well is like in some instances, in some of the healthiest business partnerships or even, marriage relationships or other just friendships, there is that real candor to be able to say some hard things to each other in a forceful way.
Mm-hmm.
But often those are best tempered by that, actually maybe I don't say it in the moment because I can choose better words that are then more motivated by love for the other person or concern for the relationship or whatever than just my immediate anger.
So that's us from this week at the Make It Count podcast.
Yeah.
See you guys next week.